manufacturing transformation. Since 2019, Asian Productivity Organization's Center of Excellence on Smart Manufacturing is the future smart manufacturing service ecosystem rooted in Taiwan and takes a broad view in Asia. APO COE on SM has set up Smart Manufacturing Experience Ball, adopted Toyota Pool System Managing Mode, and monitor equipment. Utilizes nowadays technology to enhance managing quality and decision pace. Showcasing new possibilities of cyber plus a physical smart system to company managers. Smart Manufacturing Experience Ball mainly contains assembly lines, raw materials, production warehouses, automatic guided vehicles, automatic production lines, and monitors in situation rooms. Through smart assembly line systems, visualization monitors, and AOA industrial augmented reality, these co-location of hardware, software, can help decision makers to produce, can remotely update, and realize the situation on the spot.
Three, two, one.
APO Smart Manufacturing Technique Service Group has been founded 3 years. Wasn't affected by COVID-19 at all, and continues to connect with 4 target member countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Besides, they attended online technical intercourse activity, video call conferences, and industry cooperation forums, pushing Taiwan's smart manufacturing techniques to the world. APO COE on SM assists companies to manage for various matters in factories.
我们妙运公司要立足台湾，就必须产业升级再升级，所以我们一直致力于智慧机器与智慧制造，所以我们对网络控制人才非常大的需求。在物联网架构下，培养自动化人机界面感测器与云端运用的优秀人才。我们有3位员工在生产力中心媒合后，除了发挥所长，并很认真地学习网版印刷机的相关知识，对我们网版印刷机的智慧化非常有帮助。从感测技术、精密控制、通信联网，到融合工业4.0智慧的元素，大大提升我们企业的竞争力。提升国家经济发展。他们因为有在中国生产力中心受过网控人才训练班，缩短了他们在我们公司最少有2至3倍的学习时间，所以他们也很快的就进入工作状况。那公司当然也给他们越来越好的待遇。
之前我是在北部那边工作啊，然后基本上做的是跟这个网控班一点关系都没有。我是做机械主力的那部分，所以我对电控啊、对基础配线啊、PLC 那边是完全不懂的。经由网络，那 FB 上面有在广告这样子。进来这边学习之后，真的对找工作这方面真的好很多啦。因为之前的话要找工作，也不是那么好找啊。对啊，然后经过这边算职前训练之后，其实出来之后一早就找到了。
我之前的工作经验是有在食品业工作，工作一段时间这样子。我在家里大概1年多的时间，在知道这个课程的时候，就是想要去了解智慧生产自动化是什么东西，所以就是报名了这个课程。这个课程让我了解到，原来机械可以那么智慧化，可以那么人性这样子。因为我现在工作是属于资料收集的部分，这个部分就是我之前课程上所学到的大数据分析的一些概念，在这边都用得到这样子。我是觉得工作会比较好找，至少我有这些知识，有这些技能可以找工作这样子。
我以前是在台南市工作，那时候是做食品相关行业的行政主管职，那大概做了3、4年左右。当初 CPC 有举办，这个媒介工作上的媒介啊，刚好那个喵印经济的那个曾总。刚好有机会接受他们的面试，所以把我录取到这里来。刚好亲戚看到，有关这种智慧控制的课程，所以跟我叙述说这个课程可以比较有机会发展，发现蛮多可以学习的，比如像之前没接触过的 sensor 的部分啊，或是机械的控制的部分，以前是完全没有接触过这一块自动通讯这一块。那是参加 CPC 以后才有学习到、接触到。我们进来以后，我发觉我们本身对这一块自动控制还蛮有兴趣的。那之前在受训的时候有接触一些大数据的工作，那后来到这里又增进学习一些新的 CSGN 的技术，所以在这一块上面我们有继续的下去做开发跟后面的专题的制作。
感谢中商投分时和中国生产力中心举办智慧网控人才培训班。
In 2021, the world entered digital transformations in the application generation. Taiwan relied on AIoT to assist the manufacturing.
我们妙印公司要立足台湾，就必须产业升级再升级，所以我们一直致力于智慧机器与智慧制造，所以我们对网络控制人才非常大的需求。在物联网架构下，培养自动化人机界面感测器与云端运用的优秀人才。我们有3位员工在生产力中心媒合后，除了发挥所长，并很认真地学习网版印刷机的相关知识，对我们网版印刷机的智慧化非常有帮助。从感测技术、精密控制、通信联网到融合工业4.0智慧的元素，大大提升我们企业的竞争力，提升国家经济发展。他们因为有在中国生产力中心受过网控人才训练班，缩短了他们在我们公司最少有2至3倍的学习时间，所以他们也很快的就进入工作状况。那公司当然也给他们越来越好的待遇。
之前我是在北部那边工作然后基本上做的是跟这个网控班一点关系都没有。 我是做机械主力的那部分，所以我对电控啊、对基础配线啊、PLC 那边是完全不懂的。经由网络，那 FB 上面有在广告这样子，进来这边学习之后，真的对找工作这方面真的好很多啦。因为之前的话要找工作，也不是那么好找啦。对啊，然后经过这边算职前训练之后啊，其实出来之后一找就找到了。
我之前的工作经验是有在食品业工作，工作一段时间这样子。我在家里大概1年多的时间，在知道这个课程的时候，就是想要去了解智慧生产自动化是什么东西，所以就是报名了这个课程。这个课程让我了解到原来机械可以那么智慧化。可以那么人性这样子，因为我现在工作是属于资料收集的部分，这个部分就是我之前课程上所学到的大数据分析的一些概念，在这边都用得到这样子。我是觉得工作会比较好找，至少我有这些知识，有这些技能可以找工作这样子。
我以前是在台南市工作，那时候是做食品相关行业的行政主管职，那大概做了3、4年左右。当初 CPC 有举办，这个媒介工作上的媒介啊，刚好那个喵印经济的那个曾总刚好有机会接受他们的面试，所以把我录取到这里来。刚好亲戚看到。有关这种智慧控制的课程，所以跟我叙述说这个课程可以比较有机会发展，发现蛮多可以学习的，比如像之前没接触过的 sensor 的部分啊，或是机械控制的部分，以前是完全没有接触过这一块自动通讯这一块，那是参加 CPC 以后才有学习到、接触到。我们进来以后，我发觉。我们本身对这一块自动控制还蛮有兴趣的。那之前在受训的时候有接触一些大数据的工作，那后来到这里又增进学习一些新的 DyZqNE 的技术，所以在这一块上面我们有继续的下去做开发跟后面的专题的制作。
感谢中彰投分署和中国生产力中心举办智慧网控人才培训班。
In 2021, the world entered digital transformations in the application generation. Taiwan relied on AIoT to assist the manufacturing industry and extensively incepted smart manufacturing transformation. Since 2019, Asian Productivity Organization Center of Excellence on Smart Manufacturing is a future smart manufacturing service ecosystem rooted in Taiwan and takes a broad view in Asia. APO COE on SM has set up Smart Manufacturing Experience Vault, adopted Toyota Pool System Managing Mode, and monitor equipment. Utilizes nowadays technology to enhance managing quality and decision pace. Showcasing new possibilities of cyber plus a physical smart system to company managers. Smart Manufacturing Experience Vault mainly contains assembly lines, raw materials, production warehouses, automatic guided vehicles, automatic production lines, and monitors in situation rooms. Through smart assembly line systems, visualization monitors, and AOA industrial augmented reality, these co-location of hardware, software, can help decision makers to produce, can remotely update, and realize the situation on the spot.
Three, two, one.
APO Smart Manufacturing Technique Service Group has been founded 3 years. wasn't affected by COVID-19 at all and continues to connect with 4 target member countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Besides, they attended online technical intercourse activity, video call conferences, and industry cooperation forums, pushing Taiwan's smart manufacturing techniques to the world. APO COE on SM assists companies to manage for various matters in factories.
我们妙运公司要立足台湾，就必须产业升级再升级，所以我们一直致力于智慧机器与智慧制造，所以我们对网络控制人才非常大的需求。在物联网架构下，培养自动化人机界面、感测器与云端运用的优秀人才。我们有3位员工在生产力中心媒合后，除了发挥所长，并很认真地学习网版印刷机的相关知识，对我们网版印刷机的智慧化非常有帮助。从感测技术、精密控制、通信联网，到融合工业4.0智慧的元素，大大提升我们企业的竞争力。提升国家经济发展，他们因为有在中国生产力中心受过网控人才训练班，缩短了他们在我们公司最少有2至3倍的学习时间，所以他们也很快的就进入工作状况。那公司当然也给他们越来越好的待遇。
之前我是在北部那边工作然后基本上做的是跟这个网控班一点关系都没有。我是做机械主力的那部分，所以我对电控对基础配线PLC 那边是完全不懂的。经由网络，那 FB 上面有在广告这样子，进来这边学习之后，真的对找工作这方面真的好很多啦。因为之前的话要找工作，也不是那么好找啦。对然后经过这边算职前训练之后其实出来之后一找就找到了。
我之前的工作经验是有在食品业工作，工作一段时间这样子。我在家里大概1年多的时间，在知道这个课程的时候，就是想要去了解智慧生产自动化是什么东西，所以就是报名了这个课程。这个课程让我了解到原来机械可以那么智慧化。可以那么人性这样子，因为我现在工作是属于资料收集的部分，这个部分就是我之前课程上所学到的大数据分析的一些概念，在这边都用得到这样子。我是觉得工作会比较好找，至少我有这些知识，有这些技能可以找工作这样子。
我以前是在台南市工作，那时候是做食品相关行业的行政主管职，那大概做了3、4年左右。当初 CPC 有举办，这个媒介工作上的媒介刚好那个妙音机器的那个曾总刚好有机会接受他们的面试，所以把我录取到这里来。刚好亲戚看到。有关这种智慧控制的课程，所以跟我叙述说这个课程可以比较有机会发展，发现蛮多可以学习的，比如像之前没接触过的 sensor 的部分或是机械控制的部分，以前是完全没有接触过这一块自动通讯这一块，是参加 CPC 以后才有学习到接触到。我们进来以后，我发觉。我们本身对这一块自动控制还蛮有兴趣的。那之前在受训的时候有接触一些大数据的工作，那后来到这里又增进学习一些新的 DyZqNE 的技术，所以在这一块上面我们有继续的下去做开发跟后面的 专题的制作。
感谢中彰投分署和中国生产力中心举办智慧网控人才培训班。
In 2021, the world entered digital transformations in the application generation. Taiwan relied on AIoT to assist the manufacturing industry and extensively incepted smart manufacturing transformation. Since 2019, Asian Productivity Organization Center of Excellence on Smart Manufacturing is the future smart manufacturing service ecosystem rooted in Taiwan and takes a broad view in Asia. APO COE on SM has set up Smart Manufacturing Experience Ball, adopted Toyota Pool System Managing Mode, and monitor equipment. Utilizes nowadays technology to enhance managing quality and decision pace. Showcasing new possibilities of cyber plus a physical smart system to company managers. Smart Manufacturing Experience Ball mainly contains assembly lines, raw materials, production warehouses, automatic guided vehicles, automatic production lines, and monitors in situation rooms. Through smart assembly line systems, visualization monitors, and AOA industrial augmented reality, these co-location of hardware, software can help decision makers to produce, to remotely update, and realize the situation on the spot.
Three, two, one.
APO Smart Manufacturing Technique Service Group has been founded 3 years. Wasn't affected by COVID-19 at all and continues to connect with 4 target member countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Besides, they attended online technical intercourse activity, video call conferences, and industry cooperation forums, pushing Taiwan's smart manufacturing techniques to the world. APO COE on SM assists companies to manage for various matters in factories.
我们妙运公司要立足台湾，就必须产业升级再升级，所以我们一直致力于智慧机器与智慧制造，所以我们对网络控制人才非常大的需求。在物联网架构下，培养自动化人机界面感测器与云端运用的优秀人才。我们有3位员工在生产力中心媒合后，除了发挥所长，并很认真地学习网版印刷机的相关知识，对我们网版印刷机的智慧化非常有帮助。从感测技术、精密控制、通信联网，到融合工业4.0智慧的元素，大大提升我们企业的竞争力。提升国家经济发展。他们因为有在中国生产力中心受过网控人才训练班，缩短了他们在我们公司最少有2至3倍的学习时间，所以他们也很快的就进入工作状况。那公司当然也给他们越来越好的待遇。之
前我是在北部那边工作然后 基本上做的是跟这个网控班一点关系都没有。我是做机械主力的那部分，所以我对电控啊、对基础配线啊、PLC 那边是完全不懂的。经由网络，那 FB 上面有在广告这样子。进来这边学习之后，真的对找工作这方面真的好很多啦。因为之前的话要找工作，也不是那么好找啊。对啊，然后经过这边算职前训练之后啊，其实出来之后一找就找到了。
我之前的工作经验是有在食品业工作，工作一段时间这样子。我在家里大概1年多的时间，在知道这个课程的时候，就是想要去了解智慧生产自动化是什么东西，所以就是报名了这个课程。这个课程让我了解到原来机械可以那么智慧化。可以那么人性这样子，因为我现在工作是属于资料收集的部分，这个部分就是我之前课程上所学到的大数据分析的一些概念，在这边都用得到这样。我是觉得工作会比较好找，至少我有这些知识，有这些技能可以找工作这样。
我以前是在台南市工作，那时候是做食品相关行业的行政主管职，那大概做了3、4年左右。当初 CPC 有举办，这个媒介工作上的媒介啊，刚好那个喵印机器的那个曾总刚好有机会接受他们的面试，所以把我录取到这里来。刚好亲戚看到。有关这种智慧控制的课程，所以跟我叙述说这个课程可以比较有机会发展，发现蛮多可以学习的，比如像之前没接触过的 sensor 的部分啊，或是机械控制的部分，以前是完全没有接触过这一块自动通讯这一块，那是参加 CPC 以后才有学习到接触到。我们进来以后，我发觉。我们本身对这一块自动控制还蛮有兴趣的。那之前在受训的时候有接触一些大数据的工作，那后来到这里又增进学习一些新的 DyZqNE 的技术，所以在这一块上面我们有继续的下去做开发跟后面的专题的制作。
感谢中彰投分署和中国生产力中心举办智慧网控人才培训班。
In 2021, the world entered digital transformations in the application generation. Taiwan relied on AIoT to assist the manufacturing industry and extensively incepted smart manufacturing transformation. Since 2019, Asian Productivity Organization Center of Excellence on Smart Manufacturing is a future smart manufacturing service ecosystem rooted in Taiwan and takes a broad view in Asia. APO COE on SM has set up Smart Manufacturing Experience Ball, adopted Toyota Pool System Managing Mode, and monitor equipment. Utilizes nowadays technology to enhance managing quality and decision pace. Showcasing new possibilities of cyber plus a physical smart system to company managers. Smart Manufacturing Experience Ball mainly contains assembly lines, raw materials, production warehouses, automatic guided vehicles, automatic production lines, and monitors and situation rooms. Through smart assembly line systems, visualization monitors, and AOA industrial augmented reality, these co-location of hardware, software, can help decision makers to produce, can remotely update, and realize the situation on the spot.
Three, two, one.
APO Smart Manufacturing Technique Service Group has been founded 3 years. Wasn't affected by COVID-19 at all and continues to connect with 4 target member countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Besides, they attended online technical intercourse activity, video call conferences, and industry cooperation forums, pushing Taiwan's smart manufacturing techniques to the world. APO COE on SM assists companies to manage for various matters in factories.
我们妙运公司要立足台湾，就必须产业升级再升级，所以我们一直致力于智慧机器与智慧制造，所以我们对网络控制人才非常大的需求。在物联网架构下，培养自动化人机界面感测器与云端运用的优秀人才。我们有3位员工在生产力中心媒合后，除了发挥所长，并很认真地学习网版印刷机的相关知识，对我们网版印刷机的智慧化非常有帮助。从感测技术、精密控制、通信联网到融合工业4.0智慧的元素，大大提升我们企业的竞争力，提升国家经济发展。他们因为有在中国生产力中心受过网控人才训练班，缩短了他们在我们公司最少有2至3倍的学习时间，所以他们也很快的就进入工作状况。那公司当然也给他们越来越好的待遇。
之前我是在北部那边工作然后基本上做的是跟这个网控班一点关系都没有。我是做机械主力的那部分，所以我对电控对基础配线PLC 那边是完全不懂的。经由网络，那 FB 上面有在广告这样子，进来这边学习之后，真的对找工作这方面真的好很多啦。因为之前的话要找工作，也不是那么好找对然后经过这边算职前训练之后其实出来之后一找就找到了。
我之前的工作经验是有在食品业工作，工作一段时间这样子。我在家里大概1年多的时间，在知道这个课程的时候，就是想要去了解智慧生产自动化是什么东西，所以就是报名了这个课程。这个课程让我了解到，原来机械可以那么智慧化，可以那么人性这样子。因为我现在工作是属于资料收集的部分，这个部分就是我之前课程上所学到的大数据分析的一些概念，在这边都用得到这样子。我是觉得工作会比较好找，至少我有这些知识，有这些技能可以找工作这样子。
我以前是在台南市工作，那时候是做食品相关行业的行政主管职，那大概做了3、4年左右。当初 CPC 有举办这个媒介工作上的媒介刚好那个妙运经济的那个曾总刚好有机会接受他们的面试，所以把我录取到这里来。刚好亲戚看到有关这种智慧控制的课程，所以跟我叙述说这个课程可以比较有机会发展，发现蛮多可以学习的，比如像之前没接触过的 sensor 的部分或是机械控制的部分，以前是完全没有接触过这一块自动通讯这一块，是参加 CPC 以后才有学习到、接触到。我们进来以后，我发觉我们本身对这一块自动控制还蛮有兴趣的。那之前在受训的时候有接触一些大数据的工作，那后来到这里又增进学习一些新的 DyZqNE的技术。 所以在这一块上面，我们有继续的下去做开发跟后面的专题的制作。
感谢中彰投分署和中国生产力中心举办智慧网控人才培训班。
In 2021, the world entered digital transformations in the application generation. Taiwan relied on AIoT to assist the manufacturing industry and extensively incepted smart manufacturing transformation. Since 2019, Asian Productivity Organization Center of Excellence on Smart Manufacturing is a future smart manufacturing service ecosystem rooted in Taiwan and takes a broad view in Asia. APO COE on SM has set up Smart Manufacturing Experience Ball, adopted Toyota Pool System Managing Mode, and monitor equipment. Utilizes nowadays technology to enhance managing quality and decision pace. Showcasing new possibilities of cyber plus a physical smart system to company managers. Smart Manufacturing Experience Ball mainly contains assembly lines, raw materials, production warehouses, automatic guided vehicles, automatic production lines, and monitors and situation rooms. Through smart assembly line systems, visualization monitors, and AOA industrial augmented reality, these co-location of hardware, software, can help decision makers to produce, can remotely update, and realize the situation on the spot.
Three, two, one.
APO Smart Manufacturing Technique Service Group has been founded 3 years. Wasn't affected by COVID-19 at all and continues to connect with 4 target member countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Besides, they attended online technical intercourse activity, video call conferences, and industry cooperation forums, pushing Taiwan's smart manufacturing techniques to the world. APO COE on SM assists companies to manage for various matters in factories.
我们妙运公司要立足台湾，就必须产业升级再升级，所以我们一直致力于智慧机器与智慧制造，所以我们对网络控制人才非常大的需求。在物联网架构下，培养自动化人机界面感测器与云端运用的优秀人才。我们有3位员工在生产力中心媒合后，除了发挥所长，并很认真地学习网版印刷机的相关知识，对我们网版印刷机的智慧化非常有帮助。从感测技术、精密控制、通信联网，到融合工业4.0智慧的元素，大大提升我们企业的竞争力。提升国家经济发展。他们因为有在中国生产力中心受过网控人才训练班，缩短了他们在我们公司最少有2至3倍的学习时间，所以他们也很快的就进入工作状况。那公司当然也给他们越来越好的待遇。
之前我是在北部那边工作，然后基本上做的是跟这个网控班一点关系都没有。我是做机械主力的那部分，所以我对电控对基础配线PLC 那边是完全不懂的。经由网络，那 FB 上面有在广告这样子，进来这边学习之后，真的对找工作这方面真的好很多啦。因为之前的话要找工作，也不是那么好找对然后经过这边算职前训练之后其实出来之后一找就找到了。
我之前的工作经验是有在食品业工作，工作一段时间这样子。我在家里大概1年多的时间，在知道这个课程的时候，就是想要去了解智慧生产自动化是什么东西，所以就是报名了这个课程。这个课程让我了解到，原来机械可以那么智慧化，可以那么人性这样子。因为我现在工作是属于资料收集的部分，这个部分就是我之前课程上所学到的大数据分析的一些概念，在这边都用得到这样子。我是觉得工作会比较好找，至少我有这些知识，有这些技能可以找工作这样子。
我以前是在台南市工作，那时候是做食品相关行业的行政主管职，那大概做了3、4年左右。当初 CPC 有举办这个媒介工作上的媒介刚好那个喵印经济的那个曾总刚好有机会接受他们的面试，所以把我录取到这里来。刚好亲戚看到有关这种智慧控制的课程，所以跟我叙述说这个课程可以比较有机会发展，发现蛮多可以学习的，比如像之前没接触过的 sensor 的部分或是机械控制的部分，以前是完全没有接触过这一块自动通讯这一块，是参加 CPC 以后才有学习到、接触到。我们进来以后，我发觉我们本身对这一块自动控制还蛮有兴趣的。那之前在受训的时候有接触一些大数据的工作，那后来到这里又增进学习一些新的 DyZqNE 的技术，所以在这一块上面，我们有继续的下去做开发跟后面的专题的制作。
感谢中彰投分局和中国生产力中心举办智慧网控人才培训班。
In 2021, the world entered digital transformations in the application generation. Taiwan relied on AIoT to assist the manufacturing industry and extensively incepted smart manufacturing transformation. Since 2019, Asian Productivity Organization Center of Excellence on Smart Manufacturing is a future smart manufacturing service ecosystem rooted in Taiwan and takes a broad view in Asia. APO COE on SM has set up Smart Manufacturing Experience Ball, adopted Toyota Full System Managing Mode, and monitor equipment. Utilizes nowadays technology to enhance managing quality and decision pace. Showcasing new possibilities of cyber plus a physical smart system to company managers. Smart Manufacturing Experience Ball mainly contains assembly lines, raw materials, production warehouses, automatic guided vehicles, automatic production lines, and monitors in situation rooms. Through smart assembly line systems, visualization monitors, and AOA industrial augmented reality, these co-location of hardware, software can help decision makers to produce, can remotely update, and realize the situation on the spot.
3, 2, 1.
APO Smart Manufacturing Technique Service Group has been founded 3 years. Wasn't affected by COVID-19 at all and continues to connect with 4 target member countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Besides, they attended online technical intercourse activity, video call conferences, and industry cooperation forums, pushing Taiwan's smart manufacturing techniques to the world. APO COE on SM assists companies to manage for various matters in factories.
我们妙运公司要立足台湾，就必须产业升级再升级，所以我们一直致力于智慧机器与智慧制造，所以我们对网络控制人才非常大的需求。在物联网架构下，培养自动化人机界面感测器与云端运用的优秀人才。我们有3位员工在生产力中心媒合后，除了发挥所长，并很认真地学习网版印刷机的相关知识，对我们网版印刷机的智慧化非常有帮助。从感测技术、精密控制、通信联网到融合工业4.0智慧的元素，大大提升我们企业的竞争力，提升国家经济发展。他们因为有在中国生产力中心受过网控人才训练班，缩短了他们在我们公司最少有2至3倍的学习时间，所以他们也很快的就进入工作状况。那公司当然也给他们越来越好的待遇。
之前我是在北部那边工作然后基本上做的是跟这个网控班一点关系都没有。我是做机械主力的那部分，所以我对电控对基础配线PLC 那边是完全不懂的。经由网络，那 FB 上面有在广告这样子。进来这边学习之后，真的对找工作这方面真的好很多啦。因为之前的话要找工作，也不是那么好找对然后经过这边算职前训练之后其实出来之后一找就找到了。
我之前的工作经验是有在食品业工作，工作一段时间这样子。我在家里大概1年多的时间，在知道这个课程的时候，就是想要去了解智慧生产自动化是什么东西，所以就是报名了这个课程。这个课程让我了解到原来机械可以那么智慧化，可以那么人性这样子。因为我现在工作是属于资料收集的部分，这个部分就是我之前课程上所学到的大数据分析的一些概念，在这边都用得到这样子。我是觉得工作会比较好找，至少我有这些知识，有这些技能可以找工作这样子。
我以前是在台南市工作，那时候是做食品相关行业的行政主管制，那大概做了3、4年左右。当初 CPC 有举办这个媒介工作上的媒介刚好那个妙运机器的那个曾总刚好有机会接受他们的面试，所以把我录取到这里来。刚好亲戚看到有关这种智慧控制的课程，所以跟我叙述说这个课程可以比较有机会发展，发现蛮多可以学习的，比如像之前没接触过的 sensor 的部分或是机械控制的部分，以前是完全没有接触过这一块自动通讯这一块，是参加 CPC 以后才有学习到、接触到。我们进来以后，我发觉我们本身对这一块自动控制还蛮有兴趣的。那之前在受训的时候有接触一些大数据的工作，那后来到这里又 有增进学习一些新的 DyZqNE 的技术，所以在这一块上面，我们有继续的下去做开发跟后面的专题的制作。
感谢中商投分署和中国生产力中心举办智慧网控人才培训班。
In 2021, the world entered digital transformations in the application generation. Taiwan relied on AIoT to assist the manufacturing industry and extensively incepted smart manufacturing transformation. Since 2019, Asian Productivity Organization Center of Excellence on Smart Manufacturing is the future smart manufacturing service ecosystem rooted in Taiwan and takes a broad view in Asia. APO COE on SM has set up Smart Manufacturing Experience Ball, adopted Toyota Pool System Managing Mode, and monitor equipment. Utilizes nowadays technology to enhance managing quality and decision pace. Showcasing new possibilities of cyber plus a physical smart system to company managers. Smart Manufacturing Experience Ball mainly contains assembly lines, raw materials, production warehouses, automatic guided vehicles, automatic production lines, and monitors in situation rooms. Through smart assembly line systems, visualization monitors, and AOA industrial augmented reality, these co-location of hardware, software can help decision makers to produce, can remotely update, and realize the situation on the spot.
Three, two, one.
APO Smart Manufacturing Technique Service Group has been founded 3 years. Wasn't affected by COVID-19 at all and continues to connect with 4 target member countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Besides, they attended online technical intercourse activity, video call conferences, and industry cooperation forums, pushing Taiwan's smart manufacturing techniques to the world. APO COE on SM assists companies to manage for various matters in factories.
我们妙运公司要立足台湾，就必须产业升级再升级，所以我们一直致力于智慧机器与智慧制造，所以我们对网络控制人才非常大的需求。在物联网架构下，培养自动化人机界面感测器与云端运用的优秀人才。我们有3位员工在生产力中心媒合后，除了发挥所长，并很认真地学习网版印刷机的相关知识，对我们网版印刷机的智慧化非常有帮助。从感测技术、精密控制、通信联网，到融合工业4.0智慧的元素，大大提升我们企业的竞争力，提升国家经济发展。他们因为有在中国生产力中心受过网控人才训练班，缩短了他们在我们公司最少有2至3倍的学习时间，所以他们也很快的就进入工作状况。那公司当然也给他们 越来越好的待遇。
之前我是在北部那边工作，然后基本上做的是跟这个网控班一点关系都没有。我是做机械主力的那部分，所以我对电控对基础配线PLC 那边是完全不懂的。经由网络，那 FB 上面有在广告这样子，进来这边学习之后，真的对找工作这方面真的好很多啦。因为之前的话要找工作，也不是那么好找对然后经过这边算职前训练之后其实出来之后一找就找到了。
我之前的工作经验是有在食品业工作，工作一段时间这样子。我在家里大概1年多的时间，在知道这个课程的时候，就是想要去了解智慧生产自动化是什么东西，所以就是报名了这个课程。这个课程让我了解到原来机械可以那么智慧化，可以那么人性这样子。因为我现在工作是属于资料收集的部分，这个部分就是我之前课程上所学到的大数据分析的一些概念，在这边都用得到这样子。我是觉得工作会比较好找，至少我有这些知识，有这些技能可以找工作这样子。
我以前是在台南市工作，那时候是做食品相关行业的行政主管职，那大概做了3、4年左右。当初 CPC 有举办这个媒介工作上的媒介刚好那个喵印机器的那个曾总刚好有机会接受他们的面试，所以把我录取到这里来。刚好亲戚看到有关这种智慧控制的课程，所以跟我叙述说这个课程可以比较有机会发展，发现蛮多可以学习的，比如像之前没接触过的 sensor 的部分或是机械控制的部分，以前是完全没有接触过这一块自动通讯这一块，是参加 CPC 以后才有接触到。我们进来以后，我发觉我们本身对这一块自动控制还蛮有兴趣的。那之前在受训的时候有接触一些大数据的工作，那后来到这里又增进学习一些新的 DyZqNE 的技术，所以在这一块上面，我们有继续的下去做开发跟后面的专题的制作。
感谢中商投分时和中国生产力中心举办智慧网控人才培训班。
In 2021, the world entered digital transformations in the application generation. Taiwan relied on AIoT to assist the manufacturing industry and extensively incepted smart manufacturing transformation. Since 2019, Asian Productivity Organization Center of Excellence on Smart Manufacturing is the future smart manufacturing service ecosystem rooted in Taiwan and takes a broad view in Asia. APO COE on SM has set up Smart Manufacturing Experience Vault, adopted Toyota Pool System Managing Mode, and monitor equipment. Utilizes nowadays technology to enhance managing quality and decision pace. Showcasing new possibilities of cyber plus a physical smart system to company managers. Smart Manufacturing Experience Vault mainly contains assembly lines, raw materials, production warehouses, automatic guided vehicles, automatic production lines, and monitors and situation rooms. Through smart assembly line systems, visualization monitors, and AOA industrial augmented reality, these co-location of hardware, software, can help decision makers to produce, can remotely update, and realize the situation on the spot.
3, 2, 1.
APO Smart Manufacturing Technique Service Group has been founded 3 years. Wasn't affected by COVID-19 at all and continues to connect with 4 target member countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Besides, they attended online technical intercourse activity, video call conferences, and industry cooperation forums, pushing Taiwan's smart manufacturing techniques to the world. APO COE on SM assists companies to manage for various matters in factories.
各位贵宾，各位。
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues from the industry, good afternoon. Welcome to our seminar on digital transformation and sustainable innovation and smart manufacturing. Our event is going to start in 1 minute. Please switch off your cell phones or switch them onto silence mode. In the venue today, we are going to conduct our meeting in Mandarin, but for those who participate online, we are going to offer simultaneous interpretation into English. We are going to start shortly. Thank you for your cooperation. Before we start, for those of you who are present here, you can find this yellow question sheet with the QR code on this yellow piece of paper. And you can find that in your white information packet. If you have any questions which you'd like to raise, you can use your cell phone to scan the QR code, and on the Slido system, you can leave your questions. For online participants, you can leave your questions or comments in the chat box on YouTube. And during the Q&A session, we are going to look at your questions. You don't need to wait until the very end to leave your questions. So if you have any questions which you'd like to raise, please feel free to scan the QR code and leave your questions from time to time. And during the Q&A sessions, we are going to collect the questions and pose the questions to our speakers during the Q&A sessions. Now our seminar is going to start shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues from the industry, good afternoon. Welcome to the Digital Transformation and Sustainable Innovation Smart Manufacturing Seminar organized by the Bureau of Industrial Development and also implemented by the CPC. I'm your MC, Betty Chen. Under the trend of smart automation, in just 3 years, the world has experienced challenges such as the pandemic and the war between Russia and Ukraine, which accelerated the era of smart technology innovation. Meanwhile, the world wants to reach a consensus on 2050 net zero carbon emission and have actively promoted relevant green strategies. In view of this trend, we have invited experts from relevant fields in the ROC to explain how to cultivate green talent in the era of smart automation and to share the latest trends of smart technology to enhance operational efficiency through digitization and achieve energy saving and carbon reduction through energy management so as to grasp the key to green future. We have a lot of VIPs today. First of all, I'd like to announce the participants, the VIPs. The first, Vice President Jianfei Zhang from CPC. Welcome. Senior Executive Vice President Jason Chin of 104 Information Technology Group. And also Andrew Wu from ICP-DAS, and also Project Manager Jackie Hong from Onward Security. Consultant Zhiqun Hu from CPC. And also Randy Wong from CPC. I'd like to thank the VIPs for participating in our event. Now, I'd like to ask Vice President Jianfei Zhang from CPC to give us an opening remark. Let's welcome him. Vice President Jason Jin from 104 Information Technology, and also Mr. Andrew Wu from ICP-DAS, and also Jackie Huang from Onward Security. And ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. CPC is very fortunate to implement smart automation cultivation program for the 4th year. Why do we add the word smart? In the past, we use sensors and also controllers to achieve the monitoring and the control of equipment. And then we also use touch screens to create human-machine interfaces. The purpose is to achieve automation and mass production and labor-free. Now there is another change under Industry 4.0. On top of the existing basis of automation, now we are looking at CPS. And also, in addition to automation and sensing, we also make use of or integrated use of detection and communication on top of artificial intelligence as well as big data.
So what can we do? Going upstream, we can connect the suppliers and manufacturers. Downstream, we can connect the marketeers and the sellers. We talked about C2C, B2B, but now we're actually going C2B and B2C. That is, the consumers and customers actually able to contact the manufacturers directly and ask them to manufacture what they want. It's not just a selection of goods anymore, but rather it's a customized process. So what we need is that the digital connections must be smooth and fluent for the information to flow freely and for customization to truly scale up. Because if you are not able to increase the production volume, then the price will still be high and too costly for customization. Therefore, when we talk about Industry 4.0, what we are talking about is not just smart manufacturing, but rather the basis of smart manufacturing is still the people or human factor. I recall working with SECPAS or manufacturers of robotic arms. And in the previous discussion, they said that 7 out of 10 malfunction reports actually were not actually malfunctions, but rather because the people did not know how to operate the machines. So it's actually the human factor that's still behind all these developments and the factor that we must learn how to control. I used to head just smart manufacturing at CPC, and I supervised the entire operations. But last year, there was another responsibility for me, and that is achieving the net zero. Well, net zero has already become a consensus among many countries in the world. In 2026, we would now be paying carbon tax, and our government also has a 2050 net zero target. So how is this actually in conflict with smart manufacturing? No. When we talk about net zero, the first category would actually be energy reduction. For example, when you use furnaces or vehicles, you would likely emit carbon dioxide, and we want to reduce this. The second category would be, for example, water usage and electricity usage. The polluter will actually be the power plant, but it's because you're using electricity, and that would actually cause the power plant, and that's actually, which is actually putting a burden on the power plants. So this is what we call the indirect carbon reduction methods. So we can use various sensors plus real-time control to further reduce these direct emissions and indirect emissions. The key, of course, is still to maintain the productivity, to not just lower energy usage, but also to maintain or even increase productivity. I can also utilize big data, for example, using digital power meters, which would give me a direct readout of the current energy usage. And I would be able to learn the downtime frequency. And also through flow meters, I can check the usage of air or water. And as a company, I would then have a full picture of the energy, water usage that the plant is using. And with that information, we can talk about net zero. But then I would encounter an issue, and that is, where do I find the talents to assist me in achieving this target? In the team I led last year, we started to look at net zero targets. For example, Manager Cai and Director Wong and Consultant Wu, they are all licensed consultants. So starting in December, under the leadership of the Ministry of Economic Affairs, we would have a carbon emissions certification center. It was a new field for many of us, but we started to learn diligently and have now built up a significant amount of knowledge and experience. And speaking of the human factor, we need to take heed of, for example, cybersecurity and welfare, and all these issues related to humans. So coming back to my original point, it's still the human factor that determines everything. When we want to use smart manufacturing to achieve sustainability targets, it's the human factor that we must understand and control. So through our seminar today, we wish to target smart manufacturing and an exchange between the heads of HR departments so that we have a better understanding of how to utilize talents to make sure that we make use of the best talents in using smart manufacturing to achieve sustainability targets. Therefore, without further ado, I'd like to once again thank you all for your participation. May you live a prosperous life and enjoy the seminar today. Thank you very much. Okay, we'd now like to invite all the distinguished guests to come up onto the stage for a group photo. So please now also welcome Jason Jing from 104, Andrew Wu from ICPDS, Jackie Hong from SecPass, and of course, Senior Vice President Zhang. Okay, please look at the camera in front. Next, I'd like to invite you to take off your facial mask, and then we'll have a second photo. And please give us a thumbs up. Thank you. Let's give the speakers another round of applause, and we'd like to invite them back to their seats. It's truly a pleasure to see so many friends here on site, and therefore we'll have our video man take a group photo from the stage. So let's look at the cameraman on the left first. If you're relaxed, it's fine to give a thumbs up if you would like. So 3, 2, 1, cheers. And now please turn to your right and look at the cameraman on your right. Please put on your best smile. Thank you. Thank you for your cooperation. As Vice President Zhang has mentioned, we want to focus on the human factor and achieve the net zero target in order to further our advancements in smart manufacturing. So once again, we have a splendid roster of speakers today. And remember to scan the barcode on the yellow handout, and you can submit your feedback or questions on Slido. Right? So without further ado, we'd now like to invite our first speaker, Senior Vice President Jason Jing from 104. Let's welcome Jason. VP Zhang from CPC, distinguished guests, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I would like to take some time to share with you the current job market and the human resource market current status. Well, VP Zhang was asking me, so how has recruitment been recently? Is it easy to get the best people? Well, 104 is actually the biggest headhunter business in Taiwan. We have over 900 members. And I have to tell you, we are finding it very difficult to recruit people nowadays. So how can it be easy for the other companies to recruit people? So I think this is actually an issue that we're all very interested in this scarcity of talents. And before that, just to give you a brief introduction, I am Jason Chin. Well, of course, my Mandarin name is a bit feminine, so most of people think of me as a miss. And oftentimes when people call my number, they start with, oh, so is it Miss Jing? Well, I even recall when I was in college, my senior classmate was happy to learn that he's going to have a junior female classmate. And when he saw that I was a male, I can still remember his face of disappointment. But, well, I actually thought about changing my name, but then on the other hand, somehow I stuck with it. And now I'm the Senior Vice President of the Headhunter Business Group of 104 Information Technology. I also teach in the Department of Accounting at Suzhou University and the EMBA program at Yuanzi University. So perhaps not changing my name wasn't that much of a bad idea. So coming back to my topic, the 104 Information Technology has been on the forefront in recruitment and getting companies the best talent. But if we look at the current market, we see that many of these customers or companies have told us we cannot rely further on the demographic bonus anymore, because we are seeing the birth rate going down. And in terms of the build-up of information structure, as I've mentioned, 20 to 30 years ago, smart manufacturing or automation was just in its infancy, and it has only become mainstream in recent years. The reason was because of an advancement in computing power and internet connectivity. So in the manufacturing process, integration has become more and more important. In the past 2 years, online meetings became a mainstream for many people, and that has, of course, impacted the manufacturing industry. If we look at the government policies, for example, Taiwan actually is in a difficult state. Obviously, if we compare Taiwan and China, the industries often overlap each other. If we look at the Southeast Asian countries, they're also catching up very quickly. So Taiwan is in a precarious point in the market. In Taiwan, we used to focus on mass production, and mass production would provide stable quality and low costs. We were so-called the four tigers of Asia, and it's basically actually economy built out of perspiration, out of sweat and blood. We can sacrifice the labor's welfare or will, we can sacrifice the environment and focus solely on economy. But nowadays, this has become a challenge for us because after we've been one of the four tigers, you would see that all the rivers have been polluted. That is, we've sacrificed too much.
However, when in the face of global warming and sustainable development, Taiwan enterprises are facing great challenges. It's not just a matter of implementation, but rather a change of rationale, concept, or philosophy. So, in the past, Taiwan was one of the four tigers in Asia. Taiwan's enterprises or companies were quite resilient. We could, in addition to mass production, we could also handle production or fulfill orders of varying quantities. And also for the high-tech industries, we can still fulfill the demands for orders for high specification products with low prices. The industries in Taiwan have progressed step by step. I'm sure that many of you understand this journey. We now have a lot of hidden champions. Many companies in Taiwan have achieved a lot of success in different parts of the world. Like mainland China, ASEAN countries will also play a very important role in world economy. If you look at the investment in smart equipment, you can see a substantial investment in China and also in Korea. These countries have spared no efforts in investing in this area. So we need to think about how we can embrace the challenges or face the challenges of industrial upgrade and transformation. It's a matter of our execution, determination to implement change. It's not just a matter of changing our philosophy. Now, this depicts the survey conducted by the National Development Commission. This shows that there is a shortage of talent, according to the respondents, which are smart machinery vendors. Due to low birth rate, some colleges or universities will face the fate of close down because they will not be able to recruit enough students. And also, for certain workers working in certain industries, such as engineers, they tend to have higher and higher salaries because of the high demands for engineers because they are in high demands in fields such as big data or artificial intelligence. My company has been established for 26 years, and we have seen a transformation of the demands for different types of talent. For people who specialize in human resources, they tend to be quite important talent for us to recruit. But now the focus is now on engineers. And also for the job seekers that are high on demands among our customers, actually 1/3 of them are engineers. We also use big data in understanding or identify the trends for the recruitment of the talent. So these are trends that we can notice. But where are the talents? So many companies have a deep pocket, but they cannot recruit the people they need. So companies such as TSMC, when they try to set up a facility in southern part of Taiwan, I think they are very concerned about the supply of talent. And in September, I think they just sent their people to the campus of National Taiwan University to actively recruit the students who will be graduating in a year or two. So, if you still have relatives or children who are still students, you need to talk to them, make sure that they are now on the right track for their employment. Now, if you look at the surveys in 2020 and 2021, you can see that the issue of talent became a top concern for the respondents. Shortages of talent are a major concern among the respondents. So how can companies face the challenge as such? So this has posed great challenges for enterprises in their development effort, whether in the area of big data or automation, because they are facing great uncertainties in their ability to recruit the talent they need. For many of you who may be working at certain companies, you'll understand that it's difficult to find a job. However, if you look at the website of my company, there are still a lot of job openings available. Our facility allow companies to announce their job openings. If you understand financial statements, you can see that my company's EPS for the first 3 quarters exceed 10 NT. That means we have earned 100% our capital amount. So you can see that under the impact of COVID-19, they can only post their job openings at my company. However, the number of people who respond to the job openings is declining year over year, for very complex reasons. So you can see that shortages of talent has become a national security issue. Now, this is another survey by my company. You can see that we compile statistics of different job openings from fields such as semiconductor or smart manufacturing or research and development positions. You can see that from 2020 to 2022, you can see job openings have increased by 50%. So have you seen the trend of smart manufacturing or AI? Of course, we have seen the trend quite clearly. So under such a situation, we don't have enough supply of talents. And also, Taiwan is facing a great issue of low birth rate. And also, the mortality rate has now exceeded the birth rate. And also, we have an aging popularity, an aging population. So you can see the problem right now. So when we have a dire need for talents, how can companies cope with such challenges? So many companies have told me that due to the ongoing shortages of labor, they will definitely need to invest in automation. So they need to address the issue from the aspect of technology and also automation. So we all understand that AI is very important. AI is definitely a major trend in the future for many positions that require manual labor. Such positions will definitely be replaced by AI. So according to our survey, actually jobs related to AI are increasing even faster. They need engineers who have experience with automation, deep learning, AI, etc. So the engineers can be paid a very high salary because of the scarcity of the supply of the talent. This is what is happening right now, and the situation is going to be worse. How can we cope with the challenges from smart manufacturing and also automation? And also, how can we tackle the challenges for industrial transformation? This is not an issue facing Taiwan alone, but also countries such as Korea and Japan and China. This is Thomas Frey. This is what he proposed. And of course, there are different numbers in different surveys. But I'd like to give you this example to show that it is expectable that many jobs will disappear in the future. However, there are a few phenomena that I'd like to share with you. The first is that technology will change the human resource structure. Now we can see that a very complex interplay between the role of manual labor and machines. A few years ago, I think in Taipei, there was an emergence of unmanned stores or automated stores, but it did not work out. In 2 or 3 years ago, when 7-Eleven launched the store, the launch was not successful. The reason is that the Taiwanese consumers like to torture the clerks. If they don't see clerks, they don't want to enter the store at all. They want the clerks to be very busy. So actually, you can see that in terms of technological requirement, all you need is a scanning and sensing technology. It's very easy to achieve a fully automated stores, but it's not successful because of the requirements of the consumers. And also, there is another disconnect between education and organizational demands. That is, the schools cannot supply the talent required by the companies. So the companies are suffering from the inability to recruit the people they need. And also the educational facilities cannot train the talent demanded by the companies. So this is a major issue. That is a supply and demand of talent. And also many SMEs are thinking of automation or smart operation, but they don't know what they should do. In Taiwan, we have facilitating consulting companies such as CPC. So if you are from SMEs, I think CPC is a very important resource that you may approach or leverage in order to accelerate the pace of automation. Here you can see three individuals. Jack Ma is the first one from the left, and the second one is the owner of SoftBank in Japan, and also you can see the business owner of Foxconn. Even though they have not been successful in realizing the trend, still they have demonstrated the trend. The robots do not have to look like human beings. So in the future, you can see the pace of automation will be very quick. So for those of you who have studied human resources, of course, we think that only human beings are human resources, but this is what the SoftBank business owner says. That he says that in 30 years we will develop a computer system that is smarter than the human being by 1,000-fold. Do you think that's fair? You call that a machine while other people who are not as intelligent as human resources. So the definition of human resources will be changed.
And therefore, the world of human-machine cooperation has already arrived. If we are unable to fully utilize automation and machines, we will not be able to catch up with others in terms of productivity. Well, I majored in human resources, and some people may say, but I focus on the human factor in my work. Well, you will still need to understand how machines work and how to utilize this technology, even if you only work with people. And this actually brings me to the topic of whether AI would replace humans. I think there are basically two views in the world now. The one is, no, AI would not be able to replace people. And the other, of course, is AI will definitely replace people. I'm sure you all already have your answers as to which side you're on. Of course, people say that when we develop the AI industry, this would also create new job opportunities. AI would be able to replace the repetitive work or work that involves a lot of repetitions, and it'll be easier for AI to do this job and to actually save energy and increase efficiency. So the problem here is, what happens to these people that have been replaced by AI? Can the people who have been replaced by AI actually fill in these job vacancies that were created by the AI industry? I think it's very difficult. Therefore, a lot of jobs would disappear in the future. And the point is, people who held these jobs might not be able to fill in the need for new jobs created by the new industry. I actually have a 50% principle that I'd like to share with you today. That is, in your everyday work, you need to actually finish your work in 50% of the time. And you may ask me, so what do I do in the other 50% of time? Well, I would say you have to work on new things, new ideas, and new endeavors. If your current work requires you to spend 100% of your time on it, then you would not be able to improve. When we do a job for 2 or 3 years, we should become more efficient in it and we should be able to complete our work faster. So you need to aim for completing your daily work in 50% of the time and use the other 50% to improve yourself, to make sure that you are learning new things. Because if you don't do this, you'll soon be left behind by the trends of advancement. This graph also shows the type of people that will be replaced in the job market by AI. People who have repetitive jobs, who serve repetitive functions would likely be replaced. If your job involves innovation and creativity, then you'll be less likely to be replaced. If you find that your work comprises of mostly repetitions or repetitive work, then you'll need to try to lower that percentage in order to be competitive in the job market. Companies would also be likely going for cultivation of talents themselves in the future, because it's, of course, one way to get talents from the job market. But if it's difficult to do so, we believe companies will actually focus more on career development and talent cultivation. If we look at the general structure of a company, the left would be what it used to be. For example, the top managers, middle managers, and employees. But in the future, we believe the structure will be more or less akin to the one on the right. That is, the companies would contain only managers and key talents. So where are the employees, you would say? Well, the employees will be replaced by AI. And where are those who actually work on the non-human related information? Well, they'll be replaced by big data. In the past, the employees were there to, well, basically fulfill the instructions of their superiors, of the managers. But in the future, managers would be able to simply issue instructions to AI. And they can simply get information from big data and from the IT system. In a world where talent is scarce, what we need in the future are managers that are able to integrate resources and key talents that are able to make the most use of resources. We're no longer looking at a structure of just bosses, managers, and employees, but one that looks like this. So how do we define the key talents? These key talents would be people who would allow their superiors to better integrate resources. So you need to keep an inventory of your skills, talents. What kind of talents are necessary for the company, are irreplaceable? For example, sales, HR people, people on the operation line. As a company, you would need to look carefully at the type of talents that are irreplaceable for the company and make sure that you hold on to them firmly. On the other hand, if you're a talent or an employee, you want to make sure the company finds you to be irreplaceable. Yet for you, of course, you want to seek the best job opportunity. So what would you think? If we look at the values, well, the first concern for employee is still, I want to have a stable job. I want to make sure that I still have my job tomorrow. That is still the first requirement. That is, as an employer, if you're not able to provide a stable career for employees, then it's not very likely that you'll be able to keep hold of your talents or employees for long. As this still appears to be the most important factor. When factories or companies move to other regions, they would still likely have to follow the same welfare and salary structure. It's more and more difficult for companies to have different salary structures in different regions. One customer once told me the most important thing for a company to do now is actually salary increases. If you're in HR, the most important thing in HR next year is to increase the salary on an annual basis. Otherwise, you would not be able to retain your employees. Inflation is going up. The government says we'll have inflation of 2 to 3%. Who believes this? It's impossible to just have 2 to 3% inflation. We're looking at 10%, which is more likely. We've just passed Black Friday, right? How much did you spend on Black Friday? Do you really believe that inflation will only be 2 to 3%? That's impossible. Therefore, for HR, if you're unable to increase your salary by 10%, then you would not be able to find talents. As you can see from this slide, job stability, salary increases are on the top of the priority list for employees. As a company, if we believe that talents are important, if we believe we need to retain the best talents, how would you be able to attract the best people if you are not offering the best conditions? Many companies have already realized that the scarcity of talent is a reality, and they have been significantly increasing their wages. In our report, we also see that, for example, transportation, bonus, and salary still fall in the top 3 of the priority list for employees, especially in the younger generation. So in the job market, if it's so difficult to find the best talents, what can we do? The first is, of course, to increase your recruitment channels. You can use headhunter services. You can have exhibitions at schools. You can make sure that people introduce their friends. Another thing is there may be people who were laid off normally, or people who resigned because of reasons not related to jobs. We'll try to get these people. In the past, we would say that if you lose your job after you're 50 years old, it'd be difficult for you to find a job. That's no longer the case. Make sure you get the talents if other companies are not smart enough to retain them. And of course, in terms of smart manufacturing and streamlining, these are also approaches that companies will likely be taking in the future. This slide talks about hiring the next generation. Companies talk about recruiting young people. And in this field, I have to say, only young people can attract young people. I once talked to a student, and I asked him, so what do you search for when you're looking for a job? He said, no, I will not be just looking at the salary and wages, but I will say look at whether the company has, for example, planned trips or other perks. And I thought, okay, so you actually like going on company perks, for example, incentive travel. He said, no, I'm actually looking at who's working in the company. If they're all old people, then I would not be applying for this job. So you would see that it's actually the young people that attract the young. And this has become a reason for them to choose to apply or not. So if we look at the future role of HR, what I'd like to share today with you is we also need to embrace technology. The digitization and automation of HR is actually a trend that's a must. And we in HR also need to embrace technology. We've once invited Dr. Ye from National University to 104, and he focuses on education. And we asked him, so what is the best talents for the future? Dr. Ye said, well, the type of talents that the world needs in the future would be, first, one that understands the trends. No matter which industry the person is in, the person needs to have understanding of the future trends. The person needs to be able to engage in self-learning, because understanding the trend would allow one to learn what are his weaknesses. And knowing one's weaknesses, one needs to learn how to improve them. And we also need people who are able to build new business models, as the world will definitely require new business models in the future. Therefore, people who are able to do these three would be the talent that all companies will be going for. People who are able to see the trend, to engage in self-learning, and build new business models. Thank you very much. And that will be the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for that exciting presentation. We understand that in terms of recruitment, we have to always keep in mind that talents actually build up a company and is the core of the company. Next, we would like to invite Consultant Wu from CPC to share with us how to make an enterprise smarter and greener. Let's now welcome Consultant Wu.
Dear colleagues, dear participants, good afternoon. My name is Zhiqun Hu from CPC. I'm very happy to share with you the development trend for talent in the field of smart automation and green leaders. And the challenge is to have a discussion by incorporating the requirements for smart application and also green technology. And if you have any questions, feel free to raise them, and I will address them during the Q&A sessions. When I started with the field of human resources, I realized that HR is key to the trend of the entire industry, and I think that linkage is taking place at a much quickened pace. And here there are two relevant fields. The first is human resource development, and the second is human resource trend. In addition to my experience as a HR supervisor in Taiwan, mainland China, in Europe, so I have some experience in that field. I'd like to share with you my experience. But before I start, let me briefly introduce myself. This is my short introduction. As you can see, that I also provide counseling services to companies counseling services to companies in Taiwan, particularly for precision processing machinery. And people have been talking about the industrial chain in the central part of Taiwan when it comes to the issue of the next promising sector in Taiwan, in addition to to semiconductor. You can see that I played a role as a consultant. I'd like to begin my sharing with a story. There is a kingdom of animals. They want to go through an election process to elect their king. There are 3 KPIs for the animal kingdom. the king has to run very fast in order to rule the kingdom. So you can see that lion is an obvious candidate. The second benchmark is that it should be able to fly, so that it can rule the sky. It makes sense if you can fly. Then the candidate becomes an eagle, and the eagles feel that that's great. So what other benchmarks should there be? Well, the king should be able to swim in the ocean. So there are many other species. For example, whales have become an obvious candidate. And they are huge, and they also look majestic. So the whale believes that the whale should be the king. So there are different candidates in different domains. Do you know who the ultimate king was? The duck. A duck. Why? Because the lion can run very fast on the land, but the lion cannot fly or swim. For an eagle, the eagle can fly perfectly in the sky, but on the land, it doesn't run, and it cannot swim. What about a whale? A whale cannot run on land, and a whale cannot fly, but a whale is very powerful in the ocean. But what about the duck? A duck is good on all fronts, but maybe the performance is not good in any field. So the duck becomes the king. So when it comes to the assessment of the talent, how can we? What kind of mindset should we have in looking at the people we like to train? And also, you need to consider your sustainable development strategies and also the future of the company. So on top of the story that I just shared with you. So that story was indeed very interesting. Now, this is a very busy slide. I'm not going to go into details. Recently, the National Development Commission has released a report indicating that 400,000 people will be recruited from outside of Taiwan in the next 10 years. Can the population bonus in Taiwan support the OEM business in Taiwan or processing business in Taiwan? So there was a business magazine article which I cited, and the title was, "Are you going to join TSMC or become a plumber?" So I have considered different concepts regarding the recruitment of talent and also the trends. And many experts have been talking about this. I'd like to give you another example. If you look at Finland, well, Finland's population is smaller than that of Taiwan. The birth rate is 2%, which is comparable to that of Taiwan. However, Finland's population is much smaller. So now we're looking at the sectors in Taiwan, such as processing, and we need to have enough population base to support the sector. In September last year, the birth rate was lower than the mortality rate. So you can see that this trend is hardly reversible. So once this trend has taken hold, we need to consider the consequences. In Taipei City, there was a well-known individual who said that in Finland, it's difficult to develop the processing industry in Finland because there's enough population. But take Japan, for example. The salary of a technician that fixes toilets can be as high as 100,000 NT per month. But of course, a certificate is required. So I think what I want to say is that you need to consider the population bonus, whether the population is adequate to support the sector. And also, in the case of Finland, even though the population is not is small, it doesn't. It changes, adjusts the focus. That is, its focus is on its domestic demands market, and also professionalization was the trend that Finland has embraced. In Western countries, I think the people believe that it's very important to be innovative and to carry out innovative ideas, as shown by large companies such as Tesla. But in the Oriental society, we realize something, and we want by creating a standard. So I think this has been the way that the East and the West have cooperated, have worked together. Our previous speaker talked about the population trend and also the trend of ESG, and now Taiwan is paying greater attention to reduction of carbon emission. And also TSMC has purchased the majority of the green electricity that is available in Taiwan. So if we pay enough attention to the domestic market, if my statistic is correct, a few years ago, I think I rated different countries. In terms of the quality of talent, Taiwan ranked #1 in Asia. So there is no shortage of talent. So the challenge is how you can attract them. Then you may have this question. So the issue is not about training the talent, but rather to develop the talent so that they can be innovative. Can we also harness the existing resources that we have in processing sector? Maybe we can, but then I have to think about the attributes of the talent. If we consider sustainable development under ESG, then we can. We need some integration, and then I'd like to share with you my view in that regard, and also based on my research of the available literature. There are 4 management capabilities and 4 personality traits. You can see that 8 different traits. But if you can identify someone with who has the capabilities and the personality traits, or you will be very lucky. So, and also you need to consider whether you want to find someone who is also loyal to the company, so that you are willing to continuously train and develop this particular employee. And also, sometimes, since 1997 until 2000, you can see that as a result of financial tsunami, the interpretation of talent, or the definition of a talent, has changed. That is, loyalty has become a very important attribute in considering or assessing the quality of an employee. So if you are looking at a smart talent, the talent has to be capable of conducting data analysis. Now we have seen the trend of metaverse. You can see that IT is indeed a trend. So the talent has to be capable of analyzing data, and also the talent has to be very responsive to market needs. For example, we know that the aftermath of COVID-19 and also the trade war between China and the U.S., the markets have been changing very quickly. And also, as a result of such changes, some companies may go down because of the inability to accommodate the market changes. And there is another expert who also raised a different observation. He believed that it's not a major disaster, but it's only that the demand has taken place quickly. That is, we need to be more, we need to be smarter and quicker in our response. And for some companies, they can use AI to help them select the employees they need. So some people do not believe that this is an economic crisis, but rather this is just an emergence of economic trend, and whether you can accommodate the trend or not is the key issue. If you can be successful, your business revenue will continue to grow. And also another capability is collaboration and cooperation. So in the future, it's very difficult to expect a single employee to finish the entire project on his or her own. So for each project, I think collaboration is very important. So our talent in the future should be able to cooperate. And also the fourth capability is innovation and should be able to manage changes.
Of course, there are also some characteristics that you need to have. For example, the person will need to enjoy technology and like new technology. On the other hand, the person will need to have a way with complicated issues. For example, the person would like to enjoy puzzle solving because in a complicated world, one needs to have certain tendencies to be able to find the way out. Sometimes it's just tenacity, and sometimes it's also just type of mentality. It's also important for the person to be able to raise questions, to resolve questions. When we look at government policies, oftentimes the education policies would decide what kind of talents they will create. For example, when students raise questions in class, what's the teacher's response? If the teacher says, wait, you have to listen to what I have first before you can ask questions. So these would definitely cultivate a type of mentality. I also have another thing to share. The chairperson of the roaming group once said in an interview, in response to a question. The question was, so the shareholders meeting was very successful. What do you like to do in your free time? And the chairperson said, oh, I like extreme sports, for example, bungee jumping. And the reporter said, so why do you do this? Because if you're already quite elderly. And the chairperson said, well, because I'm afraid that I'm not bold enough when I'm making decisions. I don't want to be shy and hesitant when I make decisions. That's why I enjoy extreme sports. Of course, as the head of a group or a company, he or she is oftentimes worried about the future and worried about making the wrong decisions. But if you are bold and willing to take responsibility, these would be the kind of characteristics that we need in the future. So speaking of these four types of talents, how do we also make sure that we meet the ESG requirements? Based on the current information that we have, the government has already announced that in 2023, for companies that are listed, and including companies that are listed, and with the revenues of over 2 billion, you would need to have an ESG report in the financial statements. Well, ESG has always been on the headlines. TAIPEI and SASB would actually be a secondary requirement, with ESG being the first requirement. So if we're looking at talents in this field, we need to have some understanding then in order to better understand the type of talents that we have and we're looking for. So when we move into the era of ESG, companies are looking at sustainability. We're not just trying to make a revenue, but the companies have to be responsible for society. If you look at the x-axis, we're actually making future decisions based on the current information. And the point is to achieve a vertical equilibrium. That is, you need to achieve an equilibrium in the environment and economy. Of course, the pandemic has put us all in hard times. And we are also looking forward to the time when we can take off our facial masks. But we still have to make it through the pandemic first. Because we often say, in the most extreme form, you would either die from pandemic or die from poverty. So we have to make sure that we can reach an equilibrium in between, not move to the extremes. So if we look at the current developments, we have to also take into consideration the benefits and welfare of the next generation. But we must not also sacrifice the potentials of this era just for the sake of the next generation. So it's an equilibrium that we have to achieve. In COP27, which was actually held in the 24th, the Copenhagen meeting, the meeting this year was held in Israel and in Egypt. And they talked about, of course, environment and gender equality, and not just climate change. And third, they also talked about building up a zone for protesters. That is, they would also have to make room for the protesters so that you're able to listen to different voices. So I think this is a general picture that they're trying to paint for the future. And coming back to ESG, our understanding of an ESG talent would be, because some companies would definitely need to have such talents in the future because of the new regulations and policies. You might have a chief sustainability officer in the future, but who is qualified enough to be the chief sustainability officer? Of course, a person who can set targets for the future, one who understands the company, and one who's able to affect the company's decisions so that the company does not focus only on the bottom line. If you've paid attention, you would know that the government is requiring companies with an revenue of over 2 billion to include an ESG report in their financial statements. Perhaps you would say, my company is not at that scale yet, so maybe this is not of my concern. But actually, we've received a lot of inquiries regarding carbon inventories and carbon assessments. The reason is, if your customer needs to provide an ESG report, don't you think that the customer will come to you to ask you to provide ESG-related information? So it's not just companies who have a revenue of over 2 billion that's affected, but if you have a customer that has a revenue of over 2 billion, then it's likely that you'll be asked to provide information as their supplier. So you cannot wait until all the regulations have been promulgated before you start doing this, but rather you need to deploy early because you need certain logics and certain data as well as documents that need to prepare. And as the Chief Sustainability Officer, this would be the person's work. Of course, some companies are willing to take on the challenge, and some companies are more reluctant. But for those who are willing to take on the responsibility, they're basically embracing the future. And of course, there are also companies who are required to do so by their customers. And they actually have to meet these requirements in order to continue to do business with this customer. So other than the SASB as well as other requirements, if you don't meet the requirements, you might also need to pay a huge carbon tax or carbon border tax. So ESG is definitely closely linked to the company's development and the development of the company's employees. So these would be the management talents in ESG. Next, we have those who are well-versed in ESG. We need people who are able to answer questions regarding ESG or resolve ESG issues. You need someone in the company who's very familiar with these ESG issues, and, for example, equilibrium, gender equality, and power equality. If we look at the government's current policy developments regarding ESG, Taiwan actually is closing the gap. And of course, the government has been putting a lot of effort in reaching an equilibrium between the economy and the environment. But of course, this requires collective wisdom to achieve. If you focus too much on the economy, then likely you would sacrifice the environment. But that's also that can also happen the other way around. So if we look at the current world, we're actually more concerned about carbon emissions or carbon leakage. For example, if you're exporting goods to EU, for example, you may have met the local regulations in EU, but if you're actually manufacturing in countries that have less resources and in countries that actually are not that ESG friendly, then this will likely be considered a route that's no longer accepted in the future, because it's as if you're trying to cover your tracks. So carbon leakage is actually one of the key issues here. The company has to be responsible and not simply try to shift its production base to a shady region or shady area. Another thing that I'd like to share is also the key characteristics. People, I would believe, curiosity is very important. Whether the employees, the talents, are actually curious and willing to learn, and whether they see eye to eye with each other. I think it's, of course, important, and we all know this, but how do we make sure that our talents are curious in the future, curious in doing better, and actually willing to see eye to eye with the company? Well, this is actually what we call the qualities of a duck. A duck may not be the fastest runner, the fastest swimmer, or the fastest flyer, but it's an animal that can do all three. So these are the types of talents that we need. And here at CPC, what we can help is we can help you create a mentality in building a talent bank and in cultivating the best talents. We can share with you what are the necessary skills of the talents you need and the current talents. So what we do is we first carry out a matchmaking to provide, for example, an IVP project and to allow the people to learn from work and to work while learning. This is, of course, a cross-disciplinary approach. And therefore, the first goal is to understand the person's unique traits and the person's specialties as well as strengths. At CPC, we already have a model that is able to help us do this. We see that many companies actually offer a project to new employees first and then actually assess how the employee does during these projects. And finally, we also need to make sure that the successor plans and the career cultivation plans are in place. The types of courses required are listed here on this slide, and we've also listed the courses that we would recommend. For example, sustainability classes that focus on creating and cultivating ESG talents. We also have classes on social responsibilities, gender equality, governance, and equilibrium between people. This would be more on labor relations and, of course, labor welfare. We also have classes on ethics, on the management of crisis, and, of course, supplier management and sustainability. We also have partners who see that the current ministry is focusing on Scope 1 and Scope 2, but Scope 3 is actually very important because Scope 3 means where the suppliers. It will be our pleasure to offer you more information if you are interested in these courses on building new talents. Of course, any system has its risks. We never envisioned a world with COVID, but we've already made it past the deepest trough. And of course, the pandemic is a huge challenge for all mankind, but I believe this challenge is also a turning point and a way for us to look at talents in a new way and view our employees from a different perspective. So that will be the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Consultant Wu once again for the informative presentation. Please feel free to scan the QR code and leave your questions on Slido. Next, we'll be moving into the industry trends. How do we improve the monitoring and efficiencies of factories? We'd now like to invite ICP-DAS Manager Andrew Wu to share with us how to use smart manufacturing in the new factory.
Dear colleagues, dear participants, good afternoon. My name is Andrew from ICP-DAS. Jason just mentioned about the name change. I think I also like to change my name. But because my name sounds like an evil historical figure in the history of China. And so people have been, in the past, people made fun of me based on my name. ICP-DAS is an industrial automation technology innovator and enhancer. We manufacture products or modules required for automation. We have more than 2,000 types of products. So today in my presentation, I will discuss how we can achieve the sustainable development and energy efficiency of a smart factory from the angle of factories. The first thing we need to think about equipment as our largest asset, how we can properly maintain our assets. And this also has something to do with our human resources. I'm going to touch upon that later. In the beginning, we talk about predictive maintenance. Traditionally, what happens if your equipment breaks down? Well, you just fix it. But I don't know that it breaks down until it happens. So the damage has been done if that is the case. Whenever we are talking about your losses in terms of machinery or the products that are to be produced, or losses in terms of your supply chain operation. And then we make progress. Now we we gradually we move to the phase of periodic maintenance. It means that we maintain our machinery and equipment at regular intervals. And if some parts have to be replaced, we do that at regular intervals, or we apply lubricants to the machine regularly. And that can effectively help address the issue of malfunction or downtime, but it's more costly this way because you don't know if whether it is truly necessary to replace certain parts. I just do that to play it safe before the parts actually become problematic. We don't know whether the service life of a particular part or component is coming to an end. But in order to play it safe, I have to sustain the waste by replacing parts that look normal and usable. And then we progress to the stage of predictive maintenance. That is, we conduct our maintenance when there are changes to the status of the equipment. But how do we know that? And what should I do in order to have that information? Traditionally, when there is a failure, you need to shut down the machine for maintenance. For predictive maintenance, is something that you know in advance that it's still functional, but there are abnormalities. And before a true issue has emerged, I can try to eliminate the issue, so I can reduce the downtime as much as possible. And also, by doing so, we can avoid or reduce the likelihood of safety issues due to the malfunction of the machinery. And also, you can achieve your yield, and also you can better meet the customer's requirements. From the angle of safety, I can also reduce the issue of accidents in the facilities. And also, I can have the information as to whether the environment or the facilities are normal. So the prediction is not limited to the status of the machinery, and also it has something to do with the status of people and the environment. So, in order to ascertain the status of the tools and machinery, we set up a lot of sensors. After setting up the sensors, I need to then try to visualize the data that are collected. Now that I have access to data, I can identify issues, and then I can leverage big data. And when the data becomes big data, I can use it for problem-solving purposes, and also I can use it for AI learning. Now, many research institutions have conducted research in this area. That is, to create a neural network learning operation based on the data collected from the machines. If you identify parameters that exceed the normal range, you can expect certain issues to emerge in the future, and then you can address the issues before they emerge. This is also a step that exists in IoT. So ultimately, I need to collect data, and I need to be able to visualize the data. predictive maintenance, there are different dimensions, and including electricity, pressure, temperature, deformation, and vibration. And then we need to collect big data based on these parameters. And then we can set the upper and lower thresholds. And if the parameter exceeds the thresholds, a warning can be triggered. Now I'd like to talk about the issue of power measurement, or an energy aspect. I'd like to share with you a story. Each time we introduce our smart meters, our customers often come up with this question. The question is, if I use your smart meter, how much electricity can I conserve? The answer is always, I don't know. I don't know how you use the smart meter, but I do not do that intentionally. I do not withhold information from the customers. We use the meters to help the customers understand how energy is being used within the facilities. It's just like Sun Tzu's art of war. You need to understand your enemies in order to be victorious as a result of the battle, or in order to maintain your advantage. So you need to understand how power is consumed. And that is the way to understand yourself. If you don't understand yourself, how can I tell you how you can conserve energy, or how much energy can be saved? So you can use smart meters to visualize the data about power consumption. Is a very important beginning. You need to collect data for months or for years, and then you can gradually understand when you have a peak consumption of electricity. And then you can think about the strategies to reduce energy consumption. Typically, our recommendation is given based on the needs of the customers. If the customer's facility is very small, and if the deployment will take place in a very small area, then the structure is very simple. Just a few power meters will be set up, and then that's it. And also, in the course of visualization, the customer will need some kind of a display to look at the status or to present the data. Now, if the customer's demands are increasing, we can use something to replace PLC, and these are all our products. And the advantage is that we have it's a packaged product, and the power monitoring system can be set up very quickly. And this is also an independent small system. But to what extent is that visualized? We can see in this slide. You can see that there are a two-layer structure. If visualization is required, I will need visualization software. If we only need our smart meter driver and a smart meter, then all we need is a web interface. And if more requirements are made, of course, we can further upload the data to the cloud, and we can have an aggregator, which will provide us with more flexibility. So we can use an aggregator. So when you have finished the deployment, you will have a web page that will provide all the visual information to you. And if that's okay, you can use the system for months to monitor or observe the status of power consumption. And also, you may create a war room-like setup, or you can upload the data to the clouds for further data analysis. The key is really in the red circle. That is an aggregator that allows us to see on a real-time basis the status of power consumption. And if you don't do this, you do not know how much power can be conserved or saved. But if you do not do that, there is no way that you can achieve power saving. This is a real case study. Actually, by monitoring the power consumption, you can also monitor the status of your tools. When there is a power surge, that means that the motors need more power or more electricity to drive the motors. If the surge is higher than the average, then there may be a problem, and then in that case you will need to check. If it's too low, it's a possible scenario. If there is a heater and you only need this much energy for heating purposes, however, if the power current or the current declines, then maybe the heater is going to go to be damaged.
But of course, this depends on where you set the criteria, where you set the ceiling, and whether it's able to help you make these forecasts. Next, I'd like to talk about vibration measurements. This is, of course, also an area that is often discussed. In terms of vibration measurements, as with the previous examples, we also need the various sensors at the bottom layer. We have, of course, wired and wireless connections for these sensors at the bottom. And at the top, we also have a compiler that would consolidate all the data collected. The structure would be similar for various industries. The only difference would be in the minor differences among companies. Some would prefer wireless connections, some prefer wired connections. For example, if you look at TSMC, the factories have all this architecture set up. And since they have very strict regulations, it is impossible to increase wired equipment. Therefore, they can only use wireless equipment. Therefore, the situation in every factory is different. Next, in terms of collecting vibration data, the basic methods would be in just collecting data. We would be looking at the specific spikes in the collected data. That is the basic method. And for the mid-level approach, we'll be actually sampling more points in the data. And in the high-level collection method, we would actually set up a vibration model and use machine learning to understand what the vibrations mean. This can actually be further expanded into different approaches. and allow the machine itself to carry out the analysis without having the data being fed back. So these would actually be different levels of engaging in vibration analysis. For vibrations, we actually have an ISO 10816 rotor requirement that we can follow. The data collected can be analyzed and used in this method, but it's difficult for the layperson to understand. It's difficult for us to actually determine whether the collected data means the machine is good or not. So here you can see the type of data that's often collected. We have vibration velocity, for example. And what we look at is the migration, whether there is a migratory trend in terms of the vibration data. And this would provide us an understanding of the machine's current status. However, the data alone is unable for us to determine the reasons for a breakdown. We will need to look at the characteristics shown from this table through further analysis. For example, here we have the different sized motors, and if we make a comparison, we would then be able to see whether this is working in line or not. This is actually an easier way to do this, and of course we also have certain standards that we can follow. If we want to dig deeper in terms of the characteristics, we can also look at for example, some unique through a Fourier conversion, we can further analyze the reason for the breakdown. For example, at 1 times rotor speed or 2 times rotor speed, what would the vibration be like? And we can actually collect the data from 1 to 8 times. And if we look at the curve, we then have a better understanding of the reason for the breakdown. Was the axis slightly bent, or was there a problem with the weighting? So these are all ways that we can utilize the data and through further analysis get understanding of how the different spectrums would match different failure causes. Generally speaking, when we talk about vibration, it's a suitable early indicator for possible machine breakdowns. Finally, I'd like to share with you temperature measurements. In terms of temperature measurements, you might think that it's easy to just get a sensor that serves as a thermometer to get the temperature. Of course, we also create a mathematical model for the temperature changes. But what I'd like to share with you today is actually a non-contact temperature sensing module. This can be used for switchboards. In terms of temperature, of course, we need to measure the engine's temperature, but there are some areas that are not suitable for contact-type temperature sensors, so we need these non-contact temperature sensors. I actually have a case study that I can share with you regarding temperature measurements. One of our customers in the Philippines was a plastic injection company. They made, for example, PET bottles, and they have a lot of these injection machines. So one of their issues was that there would be times at the factory when the yield rate was very low. no one knew why, and they wanted to learn the reason for the yield rate being so low during those periods. So we worked with them and we set up a lot of sensors on their equipment. We had temperature sensors, phase sensors, for example, manufacturing process sensors that would allow us to collect the current work progress. So after collecting data, we finally found the reason. And the reason was when they process the plastic pellets, they had to heat it up, and they have to reach an exact heat before they can carry out the injection. This means that they need a certain amount of time to heat up the plastic pellets. So why was there a period of time when the yield rate was very low? It was actually because it's time to leave work. And when it's nearing the time they can get off work, the employees would actually speed up the process. They would not wait until it's fully heated before they move to the next stage. It's because the employees want to leave work. And it was actually this period before they're off work that had the lowest yield. And through the data collection, we were able to learn that it was this difference in the manufacturing process. The employees did not allow the pellets to heat up fully before moving to the next step. That caused a low yield. And the reason they did this was because they wanted to get off work quicker. So this was actually an example that allowed us to learn of the reasons for what such a situation occurring at one of our customer companies. And of course, there are many ways to take temperature data, and that was just one way that we actually use it to solve an actual problem. The topic and main idea I'd like to share is still the same. Be it IoT or ESG, we need various forms of data in order to carry out analyses. And the data would have to be collected from various locations in the factory using different sensors, power meters, etc. And only through the collection of these data would you be able to get a big picture. That is what we call big data. And then what's more important is to analyze the big data to try to get answers. Well, ICP DAS is a company that provides a comprehensive strategy if you have issues that you would like to resolve. We have the sensors, the actuators, the data collectors, and all the equipment necessary to engage in such a project. If there's an opportunity in the future, ICPDS would definitely be pleased to work with you in resolving any issues and creating a visualized roadmap or result for you. Thank you very much. That will be the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, Andrew Wu. Allow me to remind you to scan the QR code and leave any questions or feedback if you would like to raise any in the seminar. Next, as we increase productivity and improve quality, IoT is also very important, and that means cybersecurity is important. We would now like to invite SecPass, Jackie Hong, Senior Manager, to share with us the opportunities and challenges of cybersecurity in a smart factory. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I think it's almost 3:30, so I guess the sleeping worms are wriggling in your minds. So perhaps I'd like to tackle this topic in a more light-hearted fashion, and that is, what exactly are the challenges and opportunities in cybersecurity? I actually shared my ideas in one of the cybersecurity exhibitions this year, and one of the listeners came to me and said, well, I'm actually working at a cybersecurity advisor at a company, and I've just been at this position, but the company doesn't seem to play strong emphasis on cybersecurity. All the projects I raised were turned down. Well, I would not be providing an answer to what to do in this case, but this is actually a case that I'd like to share with you. For HR personnel, you of course hope to get the best people for the right job. But if someone who joins the company is unable to get his plans or project that's passed by the superior and it's always turned down, then there must be something wrong, right? So today I'd like to actually share with you first on OT. You talked about IoT and OT. So what exactly is the difference between IT and OT? IT is basically systems that's meant to be used by people, systems or technology. What about OT? OT would be systems or technologies meant to be used by equipment. For example, manufacturing equipment at a factory, and the systems they use would be called OT. So my topic today would be more focused on OT. And
so over the years, you probably have noticed that people have been talking about intrusion or hacking, but now you can see a lot of cybersecurity incidents. Before 2020, TSMC suffered a loss of maybe 2 billion NT. This may have very little impact on the margin of TSMC, but this may be devastating to some smaller companies. And also, Garmin was also attacked. For listed companies, last year, according to the FSC's announcement, for listed companies, if they have suffered from this kind of incidents, they have to disclose the information to the investors. So you can see that in the past, it seems that the companies in the manufacturing sector are more frequently targeted for attacks. Why did they target manufacturing companies? And this is a report released by ITRI. And the reason why they were attacked, the top reason is that they don't have enough internal technology capacity. My major is in information technology. But I may have chosen the wrong field, because if I choose the right field, maybe my salary can be much higher than my current salary. So you can see that the respondents for these companies, they don't have enough investment. But how do they assess the return on their investment? Because they have put in so much money, but they don't know how effective the investment has been in preventing intrusion. And also, the third leading cause of the issue is the lack of cybersecurity awareness among the employees, followed by detailed or trivial details about the technologies, and which are difficult to demonstrate the value of investment. For 95% of the SMEs, they do not have any cybersecurity preparation, and they are very vulnerable for hacking. And sometimes they don't even know that their system has been hacked. So for these companies, because their capital base is smaller, it's difficult. But for the middle-ranking companies, they have more capital and they can achieve ISO 27001 certification, but still they are vulnerable to advanced hacking attack or advanced sophisticated attacks by hackers. But for TSMC is quite sophisticated in cybersecurity or cyber defense. Maybe we can consider the example of TSMC as to how they can achieve that. And this slide shows the number of days that the sectors are subject to cyber attacks. The number of days in a year in 2021. This is another cybersecurity survey. We need to know where our enemies are when it comes to cyber attack, and then this is also true with OT environment. You need to understand the current status of the OT environments. That's why we need to have be able to visualize the current situation of the OT environment, so that we can see where we should mount our defense. However, in our OT environment, maybe half of the manufacturing companies have this kind of visualization. But for 93% of the OT organizations, at least experience one intrusion in the last 12 months. Take TSMC, for example. When it was attacked, the wafer in a particular production line becomes entirely useless, and that's where the loss is. The OT environment is continuously being operated, so if it's disrupted, the impact is significant. But who is in charge of cybersecurity for the OT environment? I'm sure that for many companies, they have a chief cybersecurity officer. And in manufacturing companies, they are likely plant managers. But how much knowledge do they have about cybersecurity? Maybe the knowledge level is not sophisticated enough. So what kind of issues are facing the OT environment? Why is cybersecurity so difficult to achieve? The first is that when you purchase a system of equipment, it may have a service life of 10 years, but you will need service life of 10 years, and there are a lot of adjustments that have to be made to that system. And it's difficult for you to assess the cybersecurity requirements over a period of 10 years. And also, it's difficult to monitor the environmental security of the facilities, because we have seen a lot of real-time attacks. And also for updates, when you install an update, sometimes you need to reboot the system. So you know that you know your vulnerabilities, but it's very difficult for you to address them because you cannot afford to shut down the system in order to address the vulnerability. And also, it's difficult to assess the efficacy of cybersecurity investment. For a company, a facility may invest maybe tens of millions NT by recruiting relevant people, but if nothing happens, it's very difficult for them to gauge how efficient the investment is. And also, as Mr. Wu just mentioned, it's difficult to achieve integration between IT and OT. And these two systems are hardly separable. When the IT is intruded, when the IT system is intruded, the OT environment will also be affected. This slide compares the IT environment and the OT environment. I think CIM are the most important, that is, but for OT cybersecurity, usability is availability is most important, because you need to make sure that you don't disrupt your production. So I think this is a very important issue for you to bear in mind when you consider making proper investments. Semiconductor is a very large sector in Taiwan. In the semiconductor industry, as I previously mentioned, the OT environment is quite complex. A set of equipment may be used for 10 years. And but there are, in a period of 10 years, there are different versions that will be changed. But if the particular hardware is no longer supported by the software, what should you do? Are you going to buy new hardware? After 2018, when the cyber attack at TSMC happened, TSMC tried to define a new security standard. My company conducted a study regarding the requirements or the challenges facing our semiconductor customers. Here you can see that there are different mechanisms. They just identify the pain points of the customers in terms of the technical aspect. The scanning of vulnerability is a pain point. Isn't it true that we are conducting scanning all the time? But who has actually scanned the OT environment? Maybe not many people have done that. But this is an essential step. But the cybersecurity requirements are similar between IT and OT, but it's difficult to implement them in the OT environment. In a smart factory, in addition to managing equipment, software is very important as well. When we introduce equipment, we do not just introduce the hardware, we introduce a system. It's difficult for the engineers. It's impossible to create the code or the software from scratch. You need to use a lot of off-the-shelf products. And during the use of the third-party software, some vulnerabilities are not properly disclosed, and they will create problems. In 2021, Biden signed an executive order requiring the system vendors to manage the security issue properly. In Taiwan, the SSC, the Financial Supervisory Commission, imposed these requirements. Because at the time of systems you cannot avoid the use of third-party software, and if you do not update the software, and there are vulnerabilities will be created. Recently, we had a customer that manufactures medical devices. They conduct AI. They leverage AI to conduct big data analysis. They obtained a FDA license because of requirements of FDA. They need to perform SBOM. That's why they approach us. And this slide depicts the cybersecurity compliance requirements. Under these requirements, you are supposed to achieve different requirements in different items in order to be able to sell your equipment to markets such as Europe. Some people often say that cybersecurity is equivalent to national security. This sounds like a slogan. I can share with you an event in August. You can see on the news, you can see a lot of attacks being mounted. A lot of telecommunication equipment was affected. So we need to understand the compliance items. There are different test items. If we need to sell our hardware equipment to Europe, we will need to meet certain security requirements.
And these would, of course, be continued to extended if we want to develop such products. These are not necessary. In terms of the basic telecommunication infrastructure, there were still some conflicts in August this year, and a lot of the infrastructures were hacked by hackers, and additional measures need to be taken. This would be the regulations promulgated by the Financial Security Commission, the FSC. And basically, if the capital is at or above 10 million NT dollars, then this would actually be in level 1. And for those who already set up before 2022, an information chief officer would have to be set up in the company. So the government has already set up regulations. And if we look at this slide, we also have the cybersecurity guidelines for listed and OTC companies. The new chief security officer would, of course, have to understand this before taking position. So we've gone through the difficulties and challenges in IT and OT. What exactly are the solutions that we have? The answer is actually quite similar. If we look at TSMC as an example again, we talked about or heard about ESG. And the reason why ESG is so important is because in the past 2 years, when we look at global investments, ESG has become a key criteria. ESG scores are important in the investor's mind. And I remember some financial holding companies asking me this year about providing an ESG report and the ESG scoring. And they actually told me that the banks are looking at these indicators to decide whether they want to approve the loan or not. So when it comes to ESG, it means that you'll be expanding your scope, and that means you also need to make sure that all the cybersecurity concerns are covered. In TSMC, they have clear plans and strategies for both business, for management, and of course, cybersecurity. Ever since the hacker attack, they've paid a specific attention to cybersecurity, and they've also asked their suppliers to make sure that they have no gaps in cybersecurity. So TSMC is a sound example of what a company needs in cybersecurity. If you look at the major companies and the ESG reports, you would be able to have a better understanding of what kind of policies they have set up for cybersecurity in the government's side. ASE, Advanced Semiconductor Engineering, is also a huge supplier and manufacturer. And they've also put a lot of emphasis on cybersecurity. They've also set up an assessment plan. They have an open structure that looks at the entire cybersecurity from 5 factors. And this is already an established policy in the company. So other than cybersecurity assessments, they've also taken insurance policies for cybersecurity. This is a new concept. And of course, we cannot ensure a fully watertight cybersecurity environment, but we can only do our best. And therefore, that's why we have these cybersecurity insurances that companies can take out as well. Here we have how TSMC has been setting up standards early on. I would say oftentimes we actually find that there's a lack of standards in Taiwan. Oftentimes the companies have to set up their own standards. But in 2021, we see the Semi-Cybersecurity Council being set up. Members include ITRI, TSMC, Applied Material, ASE, Foxconn, Microsoft, etc., and Cisco. And they've come together to set the standards for cybersecurity. When the company purchases equipment, they may have plans to use it for 10 years or more. And they need ways to patch up any loopholes or gaps. So when it comes to, for example, semiconductor companies, they need to ensure that the equipment can be updated. For example, if there's a password that's set when the equipment is installed, then do you actually update the password? The most commonly used password is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And actually, a huge percentage of the equipments don't update the passwords. If you use SA, oftentimes what we see is the password field is blank. It's an internal service, and companies often forget to set up passwords for these internal systems. So this is actually something that we've seen in our actual work oftentimes. The 4 main fields or 4 main faucets that have been set up by SEMA E187 would be, of course, rules and guidelines for the computer operations, internet security, point-to-point protection, and security monitoring. So if we look further, we also have the IEC 62443 standard. We also have customers who come to us to try to get the certification. And we have 2-4, 3-3, which would be some of the key focuses, including upgrade requirements and ISCS security requirements, etc. We already have the IEC, which can serve as a suitable standard. This would be a roadmap that we can set. The IEC 62443 is what many companies are aiming for nowadays. So if you're in the manufacturing industry, perhaps you can start from 2-4 and 4-1, and then move forward to 3-3, 4-2, etc. Here I'd like to share with you when I engage in OT cases, what are the steps we take. First off, we would look at what the industry is, and we check first the legal compliance that's required. The first step would, of course, be a security check. It's kind of like having a health check if you want to know if you're healthy or not. So in order to learn of any loopholes, we would first carry out a security assessment, and then we try to mend the gaps. So I'll be skipping through a few pages here. And in the internet side, we also provide some services. The first is visualization. We talked about visualization of data results, but what I'm talking about now is the visualization of legal requirements. Companies often have certain certifications that they are aiming for, but they may not understand, so to what extent are they legally compliant now, or are they compliant with the certification? So we can provide a visualized form that will make it easy for the supervisors to have buy-in. We have scores and also consultancy services. Next, in terms of the system weaknesses, for Onward, we started with cybersecurity assessments. And of course, now we also look at being legally compliant in, for example, EU or in other regions. And this may often take the company a lot of time and effort to understand. So if we have, for example, a company that's planning to launch a product in EU, they may actually need to spend a good half of the pre-launch time making sure that it's legally compliant. And this actually needs to be done early, otherwise they'll definitely delay your time to market. So having a professional help you would likely shorten that amount of time. Next, we also have SBOM, which is something you'll be familiar with if you're in the software development industry. That is how we use the software bill of material to manage your software inventory. And finally, ITRI has a assessment platform that you can use to understand the security level. I have listed the links here for your reference. And finally, we also provide so-called red team assessments. That is, it's like a mock attack on the company system to test if the company system is capable enough of withstanding attacks. So we would play the role of a hacker and try to launch different types of attacks at the company system and see if the company system is able to catch all of them. So that is also a service that we provide. And the government also has provided certain subsidies and support in terms of 5G and cybersecurity. So this is just provided for your information. So in conclusion, I'd like to share with you three concepts. The first is you have to in order to tackle your enemy, you have to first know where your enemy is. So a visualized environment is very helpful, especially when we are looking at OT. We need a way to have an understanding of how the architecture is set up, how the equipments are set up. And oftentimes, the life cycle for these equipments are long. We have to make sure that they can be patched and updated. And finally, we have to have a clear understanding of what the company's core competitiveness is before we carry out a security assessment, because only after you have an idea of company's principles and strength would we be able to provide the best cybersecurity solutions. This could include checks, red team assessments, compliance checks, etc. And finally, it's not just about your company, but also about the upstream and downstream. If you're secure, is your supplier secure as well? Might you actually be negatively affected by the suppliers? So with that, I would end my presentation. Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to thank Drew Hong. I'd like to thank Jackie Hong for the presentation. We'll now be moving to the Q&A session. We already have a list of questions on Slido as well as on YouTube. So we'll now be setting up the stage for the 4 speakers on stage, and we'll be moving into Q&A. It is now a pleasure now to invite Senior Vice President Jason Jing from 104, Manager Andrew Wu from ICPDS, and Project Manager Jackie Hong from Onward Solutions. Back onto the stage. Please take your seats. And we also have Consultant Hu from CPC with us. As we already have the speakers on stage, the first question from our audience is, Jason Jing talked about the importance of talents. So how do we solve a lack of talent in the factory? And what are the key talents needed for smart manufacturing industry? Okay, thank you very much for that question. If you're in the manufacturing industry, then I would say the so-called we are recruiting people billboard is always up outside the factory, right? Because I understand that there's a severe lack of manpower in the factories nowadays. And it's either the Taiwan businesses coming back to Taiwan or whether there are new locations being set up. There's always a lack of manpower. That's why I say that automation is always a necessity when setting up new plants, because many vendors say that they cannot upgrade and they have to move to Vietnam or India, but they don't find the necessary resources there.
For ASEAN countries, they still have more population bonus. So now the trend in Taiwan is that we have a low birth rate, but if you need a lot of people, you need a lot of manpower. You need to approach a country that has enough population, or you can opt for digitization and automation. And of course, this is a matter of cost. You need to have sufficient capital expenditure, and then you need to consider how that would tie into your margin. So if you cannot afford the large capex, you may be in a very difficult situation. So you may need to think about the situation where, for example, for the emerging countries such as ASEAN countries or companies in China, if their cost base, the cost structure is lower, then you will need to do something different by creating more additional value to your products. Otherwise, you are not competitive. You may not have a bright future in other way. So, how can we maintain our manufacturing operation based on our existing manpower? You may need to consider more diversified manpower. That is, the government is currently encouraging senior citizens to join the workforce. For senior citizens, it's still more difficult for them to find jobs. If companies want to make use of older people, you may need to make adjustment to your production equipment according to international surveys and research. if you watch programs about factories in other parts of the world, you can see that there was an experiment on a production line manned by operators aged above 40, and the other one was manned by operators below the age of 40. Actually, older people tend to be more efficient. So, but of course, training is very important. We need to reduce our waste so that we can increase the yield. We need to do a good job in training, and also skill sets are very important. So maybe my recommendation is that you need to look at the students in school, currently in school, maybe at the level of beginning with the level of senior high school. Through cooperation with different schools, maybe you'll be able to be more effective and precise in identifying the talent that you need, so that you can have more efficient recruitment. In Taiwan, there are many SMEs with less resources, but under such situations, there are opportunities for them to seek cooperation with schools so that they can try all means to improve the quality of their employees. I think I'll stop here in answering the question. Thank you, Mr. Jin, for your answer. Indeed, we understand that we need to lay a solid foundation, and also we can make good use of retired people as well. The next question is for Mr. Andrew Wu from ICP. For the manufacturer, for a company who has more varied orders with different quantities, is automation appropriate, or do they need people specializing in automation? I think this kind of people are always needed, regardless of your sector. And I think regarding this business model, maybe you need more traditional tools manned by people, and you need to manufacture products, and then you need to go through manual processing. For traditional equipment, you can still have you can still improve the process, because there are still data that you can collect. For example, data that shows whether your machines are properly operated, and also how long the machine is in operation. And even for traditional machines, they can still have there are still proper ways to demonstrate or to display the status of the machines, and then you can collect the data. And in terms of your manpower, you can make proper use of manpower to collect data. For example, we used to work with a duck farm. From the beginning of duck raising, we create a duck raising facility, and then there were steps such as feeding, and also the replenishment of the animal feeds. And they also produce duck meat, and of course it's impossible for them to achieve fully automated production, and a lot of manual labor is still required. But there are things that can be done, the slaughtering process, and in the slaughtering process, how much current is used, how much time is used, and also if you fry the duck, how much oil is used, what's the temperature of the oil. You can have records containing information about the different steps of the operations, and there may be different groups of operators who need to support each other. So regardless of the sizes of the companies or the sectors, I think you can still work on your data collection, and then you can have a process of optimization. Thank you very much for Mr. Wu's answer. There is a follow-up question that is relevant to your answer. The question is how you can properly capture data and how you can visualize the data. I think the most simple way to explain this is, for example, if I produce something, if I need to heat it up, and in order to do that, I need to have temperature data. Take a shoe factory, for example, there is a glue application process, and after that you need to heat the product. There are two factors: whether the temperature is high enough, and if the machine is too old, the temperature cannot be so high, cannot be high enough, then you may need to have a sensor to measure the temperature. You may install additional thermometers. And the information is analog. And then we'll need to have a module that capture the analog data and convert it into digital data. And this kind of modules are mostly communication-based or network type, network-capable modules. And then we can connect the modules with our computer system. And then we can choose appropriate software and process the data as collected. The software can be a packaged software or maybe control software such as SCADA or packaged software. Either way is okay. And this is the most basic visualization approach. And there are also different types of visualization, not just temperature, maybe pressure, or the rotation speed of your conveyor belt. You can also create this kind of setup. But one thing remains unchanged, that is, I need sensors. Sensors have to be attached to the machines, and different sensors have different signals. But definitely I will need to convert the signals into digital data and feed the data to the computers. And then after that is created, it depends on your application. The computer may then conduct subsequent processing of the digital data. However, at the most lowest level, at the most basic level, I need to have digital I/O. The information is collected, and then it can be fed into the computer systems. Thank you. The next question is for Mr. Hong from Onward. We have a Ministry of Digital Affairs set up in Taiwan in August, but in August, hackers in mainland China attack websites of public transportation operators. The Ministry of Digital Affairs was set up in August, and in the beginning, they had great difficulties finding their employees. So it was told that they only hire 50% of their people. And sometimes they need to mobilize existing government employees from other agencies to help them. And even for past E3 projects, they have been managed by the ministry as well. So for similar projects, from now on will be managed collectively by the Ministry of Digital Affairs, even for subsidy programs. So in the past, there were different ministries have cybersecurity units. Now this function is integrated into the Ministry of Digital Affairs, and for counseling or facilitation or educational training to SMEs regarding cybersecurity, there are different aspects of work. And in terms of the cybersecurity preparedness, there are different levels, A, B, C, D, E, A being the lowest, F, A, B, C, D, E, E being the lowest. And if you are rated the lowest, what the companies can do to improve their preparedness? And then they may need counseling or assistance, and they may approach companies such as Onward Security, and they need to find out why they haven't done a good job. So I think how much water can a bucket hold? It depends on the container. There are different aspects. So I think the level or the grade, it doesn't matter that much. It just depends on your vulnerabilities. So for mid-level or mid-ranking companies, I think the government has targeted them to provide assistance by offering tax credits or tax incentives to these companies. The government even arrange proper drills or exercises. If you have this kind of needs, you can visit the website of the ministry, or maybe you are also welcome to come to us. We also work closely with the government. Even though the government's slogan is cybersecurity is national security, still I believe that it's indeed true that a lot of money has been spent in cybersecurity-related planning and also exercise. The government has provided a lot of subsidies. If you want more detailed information, please reach us. We can provide more explanation to you.
那下一个问题，我们
Thank you. My next question is for consultant Wu from CPC. We learned about the importance of ESG from consultant Wu, and the question raised is, for HR, a master or one who has a master's or a doctor's degree in HR would need to look at the future. So what do they need in order to make it in the job market? Well, I would say, of course, in Taiwan, we have a high percentage of people with master's degrees or doctorates. And in ESG, the required talents in governance, of course, will be people who have a clear understanding of the company and of the company's role in future ESG. The person also needs to have a clear understanding of carbon emissions. We also talked about, when it comes to ESG talents, if we're looking at people studying these postgraduate programs, perhaps they can focus more on the impacts on the economy, on the society, etc. And there's still a lot of room for research here. Although I come from a technical background, you'd see that in the social aspect, for example, equality in either gender or income is still a target and a hotly researched topic. In terms of the environment, of course, environmental safety, cybersecurity are all actually topics that can be further researched. So for the students studying in a postgraduate program related to HR, I would say that, as I've already mentioned, we need people who are able to integrate resources in the future. This may be or sound very broad, but that is actually what the future needs. If you look at Taiwan, Taiwan has a strong IT backbone. Green power, carbon emissions would definitely be one of the top priorities in the future, and this would apply to those with a technology background and those with a humanity background as well. If you're asking about people who are aiming for a master's degree or a doctor's degree, I would still have to say curiosity is most important. You need to be curious enough to discover issues and to resolve issues. You can never have too much curiosity. And oftentimes, you would require cross-disciplinary research to solve problems. So don't reject other disciplines. On the other hand, for example, biomimicry is one of the mainstream topics this year. We've looked at, for example, how ant colonies work or how certain animal colonies work to see how that can actually be applied to the company structure. So I think these are actually all areas that people will be interested in. Well, thank you for the response. So in the interest of time, we're unable to answer all the questions. And I would like to thank all 4 speakers once again. We would like to have another group photo, and we thank them for joining us in the Q&A. Please look at the camera in the front. For the questions that have not been answered today, please feel free to share them via email or other methods with the organizers. We'll try to pass them to the speakers for you. Thank you very much. We'll be closing the seminar soon today. Please allow me to remind you that you have this handout with the QR code. Please scan the QR code and fill in the questionnaire. The QR code is also provided for you on the screen. After you finish the questionnaire, please remember to save the screenshot, because if you show this to our staff, you would have able to get a box of free dessert. So thank you all once again for participating in the seminar today. We pleased to see you in our supplementary webinar, and we look forward to seeing you again in our next webinar. Thank you very much, and have a great day.